Good afternoon, everyone. I have Selena and Abby here with me today.
Hello.
So we are going to talk about history today. I know that we talked a little bit the other day when we were doing something. I can't even remember now.
Oh, the wind names?
Oh yeah, the wind names. And we were talking about migration and how people use the winds to navigate their way around the earth, and how they were trading. They had goods from one place they were taking to another, and they were trading with other people and sharing their knowledge and their what the things that they grew or that they had purchased to take. So we were talking about winds and how people were traveling or migrating by wind. And so today I want to talk to you about migration, or how different people move to different places and what happens when that happens. Can either of you or you at home think about this? I'm going to give you a second to think. Think about why people would move. Think about a reason or maybe a couple of reasons why people would move from one place to another. Okay, do either of you have a reason?
I do.
Abby?
Not enough food.
Ooh, she's saying that people might move or migrate because of food, that they need food.
That was one of the things I was going to say. I was also going to say weather patterns.
Oh, so that maybe the climate isn't good for the people who are living there? Maybe it's too dry? Maybe it's too cold? Too
Not
dry?
enough water.
Not enough water. Okay. So it could be the climate. It could be they're looking for food. So what it really is, right, like what you're telling me, is they're looking for ways to meet their needs for food or for water or clothing, like something to make clothing.
Or shelter.
Shelter, yeah. So they're working to meet their needs. So people move historically people have moved, and also people currently move in an effort to meet their needs in a different way than they're currently meeting them. So I want to show you a chart, and some of you have seen this before. This is called the billiard ball chart. Here I want to show you, this is called the billiard ball migration chart. And if you've ever played pool, like on a pool table, you'll know that that's also called billiards. And the way that's played is by, you have a pool cue and there are balls out on the table, and you hit the white ball, and it bounces off the other balls. So when those balls hit each other, do they mix together or do they push them out of the way?
They push them out of the way.
They push them out of the way. So this chart is showing that relationship of pushing out of the way. So here we have, in this first circle, we have these blue people were happily living in their home and their land, using the land to meet their needs. And then something happened. Purple people moved in for whatever reason. The purple people maybe were having, maybe the weather patterns were really dry, and so the plants that they ate weren't growing because they didn't have food to eat. And so the purple people moved in to the land that the blue people were using. And so the purple people pushed the blue people out. And because, like I said, a billiard ball, the camera is lagging really far. There we go. Just like in pool, they don't mix. When the balls hit, they don't squish together and mix and make a new ball. They push out of the way. So it pushed the blue people over here. So then the blue people came to this land, and they thought, well, this looks like a good place to meet our needs, to grow, to harvest the food, to hunt and gather. And so the blue people decided this is where they wanted to be. And those orange people were living there, but then the orange people had to move, because when the blue people moved in, it bumped the orange people out, and off they went. The orange people moved over to this land. The pink people used to live here. Now the pink people have to move out of the way. The pink people move over here to where D people, the greenish people, were, and the C people, the pink people, push them out of the way. So what happened is that this land that used to be blue is now purple, and this land that used to be the orange people is now the blue people, and the pink people land is now the orange people, and the green people land is now the pink people land, and the green people have nowhere to live. They've been pushed and pushed and pushed, and there's no more land. So something happens to those people who are pushed, who are at the end of this train of migration. They either, as a people or a civilization, go extinct, They cease to exist in the form that they are, or they become like someone else. They become they change their cultures and their traditions so that they would fit in or become some other type of people. Because in this experience, in these experiences, it's a lack of resources that is moving everybody along, and eventually we're going to run out of resources for them. So this this has resulted in the real world in lots of cases. This is like what happened in the United States as the native cultures lived here, previous to the European settlers coming in the late 1600s and 1700s and on currently. And the native people lived all over the United States, just across all the way, like if you think about from the East Coast, Atlantic shore, all the way to the West Coast. And as the European settlers moved in, they settled the land and the Native Americans moved off into the mountains. Well, then the settlers needed more land, and so they went up to the Appalachian Mountains, and the Native Americans were pushed further over. And then as they needed more land, like through the Louisiana Purchase time, and white people kept moving further and further over, the Native Americans had to keep moving further and further over or get put on their own reservation land, which is what we learned about with our Trail of Tears research. Anyway, that they kept getting displaced and moved off of their land. This also has happened in other places. This has happened in Australia when the Aboriginal people were living throughout Australia and the seaborne Europeans came to Australia and pushed them further and further inland, away from the water and away from the coast and the shores. It's also happened further back in history when the Jutes and the Saxons pushed the Celts out of their land. So again, this has been happening throughout history for thousands of years. As long as people have needed to find land to meet their needs, find resources, they have moved and changed their location on Earth. And what happens with that is sometimes they push people out of their own land and cause this billiard ball style migration. Some things that could be the cause, like we talked, drought or floods, natural weather changes, overpopulation, a need for food, a need for shelter. So those are some reasons or some causes that could mean for populations to have to move and take over other people's land. So follow-up for this could be something like researching, like I said, the Jutes and the Saxons, pushing out the Celts. You could research more about the history of the United States and how the European settlers pushed Native Americans off their land. Maybe you want to learn about Australia and that the Aboriginal people of Australia and how they moved off of their land. And maybe that's something you would want to learn about. I think there's also there's just lots of examples of this happening throughout history, and maybe you want to learn more about that. I can't wait to see what you do. I can't wait to see what happens with this video, and we look forward to seeing you next time.